Triumph, where we've got another big, short price favourite. Try and get that right. Odds on shot in the form of Sergino. What's the trend, Matt Toons, for the Triumph?
So the juvenile division pretty thin nowadays. Field sizes are roughly half what they were before the Fred Winter was introduced. Luck in running much less of an issue than it used to be. Form tends to get repeated, and given these juveniles developing so rapidly, recent graded form often the biggest clue. So the trend is that horses that are unbeaten over hurdles and that have won a graded hurdle since the turn of the year, 8 from 24 since 2005, 117% profit backing them.
You are a no bet in the race, but selects Sergino, as does Dan. Deasy, you've put Sergino. Are you interested at 1.9 in front of us or not?
Yeah, I think he'd win. I think he was visually impressive. The time was good apparently, and I think he's just I'm happy enough to stick with him this race. I thought the rest of them were grand at Leopardstown. They're all entitled to improve, but I thought he was just really, really good. Don't have much more to say on that. It's not a huge betting race for me to Triumph.
Okay, a couple of shouts for Matchbook. Steve, I'll let you lead off.
Yeah, not so long ago, Irish trained horses couldn't win the Triumph, and now they seem to win it every year. And I've just not taken with Sergino. I thought the race fell apart last time. I think it's a very, very thin division in Britain, and it's untested in Ireland. And I think the grade, the very fact that Matchbook came over from France and running a grade 1 first time up and was able to finish third, despite doing plenty wrong, but jumped well and travelled well. And I think can reverse the form with Carjess and Stormheart on the back of that, and that would put him right in there, Matchbook.
Donn.
Yeah, I agree with Steve, Tom. Like Matchbook, that spring spring juvenile hurdle that Carjesi won, in which Stormheart was second, Matchbook was third. It's always a good pointer to the Triumph hurdle. Even the beaten horses come on, and a fair few beaten horses have come on and won the Triumph hurdle, including horses who've reversed places with horses who've beaten them in the spring hurdle. So Matchbook, there was a lot to like about what he did. He got out in front. His jumping was very good, and even after he was passed on the run to the final flight, he still stuck on really well afterwards. And Willie Mullins afterwards, he just seemed to think that he would come on quite a bit for that run, and you can understand. I mean, that's logical. It was his first run in Ireland, first run for Willie Mullins, first run since last April, and only the second run of his life. So you'd expect that he would come on quite a bit from that. Because she did well to win, and she came on from her run over Christmas, and she reversed places with Calaconte in that. So she's a player in the race, but just thought Matchbook was the horse to take out of the spring hurdle, and fully agree with Steve that I think the division in Ireland has more depth to it than the division in England. Sergino looked very good in beating Burdett Road, and Burdett Road had looked good before that. But I just think that what Matchbook achieved, or what the spring juvenile hurdle horse of the first three, actually Stormheart was second, what they all achieved, I think there was a greater depth to that race. And for me, Matchbook was the horse to take out of it.
I think that's Ina's Green Hats, who says Stormheart, second run underrated, make-up ground suited by the hill, ? Stormheart was the horse that Charlie put up on the Cheltenham Trail at a massive price, and you're sticking with Stormheart, Charlie?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and completely agree with that comment. You know, he was he made up a lot of ground. I thought he was trapped quite right with Paul Townend. Probably didn't get the ideal trip where I thought Carjess maybe did. And then, he stayed on very well from the back of the last flight. You'd imagine this 2 mile one on the new course should suit him ideally. He seems a good jumper. Agree with Donn that I think that piece of form from Leopardstown is the best one on offer. Sergino could be a freak, but at 1.66, I've no interest in backing him at that price. And Stormheart, I just think it is a really good value bet in a race that, bar maybe the top one being exceptional, the rest of them bring a similar sort of level. And like I say, Stormheart's race run at Leopardstown, I think, can be upgraded. And this course and the trip and track should suit him really well.
Mick says Mighty Bandit, huge price for the Triumph. First half Warren Great Chicks at treble figures. I'll see what price that horse is on the Matchbook Exchange. Alex Jeffrey says Sergino, the lay of the meeting. And incidentally, we'll be coming to our lays of the meeting at the very end of this. That is off the back of He is 130.0, Mighty Bandit. Yeah, obviously one of those sale horses. Might tickle someone's fancy. Moving on to the Albert Bartlett then. We'll kick off with the trend first of all, Matt.
In the last 10 years, 9 of the 10 winners have gone off 12.0 or bigger. All 17 runners that went off 5.5 or shorter have been beaten. For me, this is the only one of these 13 grade ones where I don't usually play anti-post. Winners usually a bigger price during festival week and often on the day. So rather than having a bet at this stage, I like to comprise a short list.
Okay. A horse who you put up at the start of the season as a horse to follow is a subsequent top-level winner, Captain Teague, and that is Donn's selection. Donn.
Yeah, he's kind of shaped like a staying type of horse for a while. Like he won the Grade 2 hurdle at Chepstow in the early part of the year, the Persian War, and he was beaten at the November meeting. But the November meeting was an unusual meeting this year in that horses that went around the inside appeared to be advantaged. Normally at that meeting, if you go wide, you tend to win the better ground, but he was a wee bit wide. I mean, Micheál raced around the inside. I thought he did well enough to get as close as he did, and then he won the Cheltenham last time. He only won by a length and a half in the end, but he was the most likely winner from a long way out. He seemed to idle when he got to the front. He was a horse. He was only just doing as much as he needed to do. And he shapes like a horse who'll get further. His dam won over 2 miles and 5 furlongs. And yeah, he's been an Albert Bartlett type of horse for quite a while. Shallow hurdle horse winners, shallow hurdle winners tend to get further than the 2.5 mile trip. They tend to be more stamina horses. It's soft ground in the middle of December at Newbury. So that makes sense. And I think he can improve again for the step up and trip.
Okay, that is Captain Teague. Bigger prices now. Charlie, first of all.
Yeah, Crow Park for me, very expensive pointer, cost 400 grand. And he's been a bit of a slow burner, but I thought his run on his penultimate start at Navan when he won a Grade 3, he looked like he's got stamina in abundance, stayed on very well to win by 3 1/4 lengths. I think the horse that finished third in that race is a subsequent graded winner. And then, I mean, he was disappointing behind Reed and Tommy Wrong in the Grade 1 at Naas, but I don't know. I didn't really see any particular reason or major excuse from there, but just it's more of an interest that I think he will be ideally suited by this step up to 3 miles. It's a serious test for these young horses, and as Matt said, often it can produce a bit of a shock and a big price winner. And I thought this horse just had enough of a profile and potential quality to take a race like this, and also would be ideally suited by the step up to the trip, because you've got to stay very, very well in this race.
Okay, that's Croke Park. Deasy.
Just unmute myself there. I've gone for one at a big enough price. I just like this horse idea, Stellar Story, and he has gone from 26.0 to 38.0 while we were recording this, which isn't a good sign. I just think that he, like in previous years, you always kind of wanted a horse that had plenty of experience stuff. He's had four runs this year. He won on debut at beating RG Hill. Then he was beaten by Slade Steele at Navan there at the start of December, but I think that the trip was just too sharp for him. I think they just ran away from him at the end of it. Ran much better. Chris was beaten by Lachlan at Limerick, beating the length, and then he ran like shite at the Dublin Racing Festival behind Dancing City. No, he's had a very similar prep to Vanillier before he won this a few years ago. I think to step up to 3 miles and this race, just the way this race is usually run, would suit him. For all that, I think that he's the kind of horse that might finish 3rd or 4th in this and going to be a much better chaser. So I'll be backing him win place. But I'm happy to have him on side at 38.0.
Matt, give us your shortlist and maybe just answer why the market often has this so wrong.
I think there's a bigger difference between the trials and the festival race here. Most of these have either been running over shorter or in slowly run 3 mile races. And this is a much bigger difference in the test. Big field usually get nearly the full field of 20 and they go a good gallop. So I think that's partly why. Croke Park, absolutely agree with what's been said about him. I think the excuse was that he was slightly lame at Naas, and also that was when Gordon's horses weren't finishing out their races. Johnny Who, he was a fast finishing 2 lengths fourth to Captain Teague in the Challow, shaping as if a step up to 3 miles, a strongly run race would suit him. Wasn't suited in the Classic behind Gidley Park when they went very slowly. And finally, a horse that isn't currently entered, but is apparently likely to be supplemented. Now is the hour. A good point form, winning by distance, then getting chinned by Asian Master. Really moderate early on over hurdles, but when he got to the Prestige, he was absolutely hosed up by 17 lengths. That was on Haydock Heavy. May have been the case he was the only one who handled the test. He is by Westerner. It might be that he needs testing ground to be supplemented. So he's one for Weather Watch on the run up to the meeting. So as there is usually that full field of 20 and it's such an uncertain race, I tend to split my stakes back 2 or 3 win only. So I'm not pulling the trigger yet, but Croke Park, Johnny Who, and Now is the Hour, top of my shortlist at the moment.
All right, as we move on to the Gold Cup, I want to remind you that we're trying to hit 5,000 Matchbook YouTube subscribers by the end of Cheltenham. Very easy to do. Head to the YouTube page and subscribe. It means that all of our videos are there for you whenever you want them, and you get a notification about that. It's a great no-cost way of supporting the podcast, and we're nearly up to 5,000. So if you like it, do subscribe on the YouTube channel, and there's a £25 free Cheltenham bet competition out there, and there's one free bet of £25 on the Matchbook Exchange for anyone that likes and comments under the video. 1 in each 50, that is. So be one of those 50 and you could land yourself a £25 free bet on one of these horses potentially in the Gold Cup. But I'll get Matt to give us the trend first, please.
The trend is that the shortest priced debutant in the Gold Cup this century, 11 from 26, 29 point, 111% profit. Gold Cup takes a lot out of horses. The market perennially overestimates the chances of those coming back for another crack at the race. And at the moment, the shortest price debutant looks like being one of Shishkin, Fast or Slow, or Jerry Colombe.
Okay, go on. You're with Jerry Colombe then.
Yeah, I am. I think it's an open race beyond the favourite. If Galopin de Champs turns up in top form, then as we know, he's going to win. But we know also how hard it is for horses coming back in the Gold Cup. Jerry Colombe won the Down Royal Grade 1. Unusual for second season horses to do that. He's only the 3rd second season chaser to win that. And he then bombed out at Christmas. And he might have had excuses there. Few of them apparently got agitated in the preliminaries. Jack Kennedy had his feet out the irons. If you forgive him that, he'd be a solid second favourite here. Gordon's made it clear all season he would only have Jerry tuned up for one day in the Gold Cup. Do think ground conditions are important. He's shown form on a sound surface, but properly soft ground would be a big boost to his chances. Water table's obviously high after the wet winter, so wouldn't need much rain in the day or two beforehand to turn it soft for the Gold Cup. To some extent, you therefore need to be on weather watch with 18 days to go, but the sort of price he is, I think there's enough juice in it to back Jerry Colombe now.
Most interesting, I think, is Steve Jones's initial shout, certainly. But you can pitch your two in together. Both come out of the King George, Steve.
Purely because I think Galopin de Champs will probably win, and looking for something, maybe place or maybe win in place. But I can't quite get my head around the fact that the only horse to put it up to Galopin de Champs last year, Brave Man's Game, is sort of ignored. The very fact that horses like Jerry Colombe, I don't think it's got the good enough form by any match, and Shishkin, who's pretty unreliable. And in both of the, I mean, you take Shishkin, Hewick and Brave Man's Game, they're not a million miles off him in the King George. Hewick might even have won. So why they've both been ignored, I don't know. So I'd be looking to back them place. If you want to back them for win, I don't think they'll win, but place only, Brave Man's Game and Hewick, I think you'll turn a profit.
Okay, currently 24.0, 22.0, Brave Man's Game and Hewick. DC, because you've got a couple of big prices, take it away.
Yeah, the first one is Gentleman's Game. I was at Cork today. He won his maiden, and I was walking around having a smoke, and I saw him up Mouse Morris, and I went over to him and said, horse down the first, nice horse. He goes, so I was like, oh yeah, okay. And I've been kind of following him ever since. I think he has always been kind of just just waiting for him to go chasing. He was brilliant at the start of the season in the Charlie Hall. I know that he's had a long time off, but I think if there's any man that will have him on ready on the day to run the rest of his life, it'll be Most Morris. And again, he's a big price. We're definitely going to get 3 or 4 places in this, so I'll be backing him. Probably only have a small bet on him to win, just in case, but I'll be mostly playing him in the place markets. And the other one then is Corach Rambler. He's serious horse, unbelievable horse. Don't need to go into his back form. This whole season will have been kind of geared towards the spring to run a good race in this, and then go back to entry. Again, you're getting, what is he? He's 20 point something. I can't see him being out of the first 3 or 4 again. He'll just be flying up the hill. He'll be a bit outpaced at the start of it. I think that he'll probably find it tough, but there'll be no horse finishing better than him. And I think if you have the 2 of them on side for the place 3, 4, 5 markets, you'll have a bit of profit after it.
Owen questions why there's no love for the real whacker, but I'm pretty sure Matt Toombs put him up at a massive price on one of the Cheltenham trails. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. D's nodding. That's good. Getting shorter now. So Charlie back with Jerry Colomb.
Yeah, for most of the reasons that Matt said, as in I just think he's become a very backable price on the back of one run behind Galopin Des Champs. Galopin Des Champs might be an outstanding horse, no doubt about it, but this horse sort of was building up all the credentials to be a future Gold Cup winner. I think he'd definitely beat the real whacker last year with a more aggressive ride, and I don't see any reason. This Gold Cup trip of 3 1/4 miles should suit him really well as well. And I think it's dangerous to write a horse off just on the back of that one slightly subpar effort. And I think the fact that he's had plenty of time to get over that, 28th of December through to Cheltenham means he comes here a fresh horse. Gordon, all the way through, as Matt said, has talked that he's going to have him primed for one day, which is the Gold Cup. So I'm expecting a much better show. And I think if there is one horse in here that could serve it up to Galopin Des Champs over this trip, track and test, then Jerry Colomb has that sort of credentials.
Donn, you're sticking with your long way out shout.
Yeah, I just think Fast or Slow is a very, very good horse who maybe isn't getting the credit that he should have got so far. He's met Galopin Des Champs 4 times. The score between them is 2-2. He beat him on merit in the Punchestown Gold Cup last April. He beat him on merit again in the John Durkin Chase on his debut this season. And okay, that was 2 miles, 3.5 furlongs. But when he won the Punchestown Gold Cup, he had to stay. He won it through stamina. And okay, he's got 4.5 lengths to make up on him on the running in the Irish Gold Cup the last day. But Galopin Des Champs, Paul Townend dictated the pace out front to suit his own horse. And we know Galopin Des Champs stays. Of course, he's a Gold Cup winner, but Fast or Slow stays as well. And the sectionals tell you that it was a race that was run to suit a pacey horse. And I think Fast or Slow could even outstay him. I know there was talk about Fast or Slow going for the Ryanair instead, and he held that entry. But he's a stamina horse. He stayed the 3 miles of the Punchestown Gold Cup well the last day. And in the John Durkin Chase, that was the worry about him dropping down in trip. Would he have the pace for 2.5 miles? He proved that he had. He goes well at Cheltenham as well. He was only beaten the neck by Corach Rambler in the Ultima last year, and he was only beaten a short head, I think, in the Carroll Cup the year before. So he goes well at Cheltenham as well. And yeah, I think he's got a big chance of giving Galopin Des Champs a real race again.
And then there's some man out there looking at the price on Matchbook about the favourite going, how's he odds against?
Honestly, I can't believe I was the only one on the document who put Galopin Des Champs for this. Like, I mean, this is from someone who's almost been crying out to take on Galopin Des Champs, especially going into the DRF. I was thinking, well, I'd love to take on with L'Homme Pressé, but a combination of the fact that I thought Galopin Des Champs may have another hard race at the DRF, but in the end he didn't. I think, as Don said, it was a relative test of speed at the trip, and I don't think that would have left any kind of mark whatsoever. And then L'Homme Pressé, to me, just showing very little zest at Ascot means that I just can't really see Galopin Des Champs beaten. We know the level of performance he can put in, i.e. last year's Gold Cup and over Christmas as well this year in the Savills. I don't think any other horse in this race is capable of those level of performances. Obviously, it isn't easy to back up a Gold Cup win, but from what we've seen this season, I don't think he's exactly showing any signs of decline. And while he have to be a really, really top-notch staying chaser to rack up back-to-back Gold Cups, on the back of what's already been quite a busy campaign, I think he really is that good. And he's shown he's versatile, he can stay. So that's not going to be an issue for him. If it turns into a test of speed, he's more than capable of winning a race like that as well. So Surprised slightly these odds again. So I guess there's a few challenges we're attracting that kind of win and play support now, big prices. But I think Galopin Des Champs, even if he turns up at 95%, I think he'll take a hell of a lot of beating.
All right, we move on from the Boodles Gold Cup to any other Friday bets. I'm with Keita Bourbon in the last race, whose second favourite currently 10.0, the Martin Pipe. He was given a strange entry at a British track, I think, for Willie to see that he would have got into under 145. I think he's got a lovely profile for the race. Donn.
Yeah, I like Answer to Cave, Terence O'Brien's horse. He holds an entry in the Albert Bartlett hurdle as well, but I think the Martin Pipe hurdle, I'd be very interested in him if he goes in this. He's got a mark of 134 in Ireland, and it'll be interesting to see what mark he gets in Britain. It shouldn't be too much more than that, but I think he's an improving horse. He ran in the Grade 2, the Doran's Pride race at Limerick over Christmas when the early pace wouldn't have suited him. He was probably in the wrong part of the track, and he was still only beaten a length and a half by Loch Glynn. Then he went to Naas last time, and he was impressive in winning, beating two good horses of Willie Mullins. So I think that a 2.5 mile trip, fast run 2.5, on which the emphasis is on stamina, that should suit him well. And John Shinnick, who usually rides him, obviously it's a conditional rider's race, so he should be able to claim in that race as well and keep the ride. And Terence O'Brien's horses, he's been in good form all season, so I think he's a bit under the radar. Answer to Cave.
16.0. Charlie, go on. One for the Hunter Chase. You're helping us all out here.
Yeah. Sign the mine in the Hunter Chase for Fiona Needham. I mean, it's a race again dominated, funnily enough, by Irish trained runners, but this mare is very progressive. She's probably a younger sort of animal than you'd normally see in this sort of race. She's an 8-year-old. Has progressed through the British point-to-point ranks. Won at Stratford at the end of the season. Needed a comeback run at Alnwick in a point-to-point, and then was very impressive on her last start, winning a Hunter Chase at Wetherby, where she slammed Benny's King by 15 lengths. Slow ground holds no fears for her. She's a saint to saint, and she just is one that probably is going to come in here slightly under the radar and possibly underestimated because she doesn't have that sort of profile that some of her rivals will have. But where this mare is very good, and she is one to kind of follow throughout the Hunter Chases in the coming seasons because I think she's got a heap of ability.
Dan.
Yeah, so we go to the Martin Pipe. Waterford Whispers, I think, is really interesting. All his form is stacking up. Beat Attaboy Charlie in a 2-mile Galway maiden hurdle over 2 miles, despite errors. See, that rival's now rated 123. What a big handicap, and was going very well at the DRF in the 2-mile handicap there. Then beat Answer to Cave, who's Don mentioned, over 2.5 miles. He was getting weight from that rival, but still relatively inexperienced. Stayed on really well. Obviously, Answer to Cave, as Don mentioned, has gone on to frank that form. Last saw him over Christmas in a 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. Really slowly run race on that occasion, which would not suit this horse. He's clearly a stayer, will be a 3-mile chaser in time. But the form of that, I think, is decent. The third Yeat Star was third in the 3-mile handicap at the DRF. Went up 4 pounds to a mark 127. Now, it's going to be maybe touch and go, and we'll find out tomorrow what his mark in the UK will be. I think if he gets 5 pounds to a mark 132, he'll probably squeeze in at the bottom of the weights. And I think given that his form is stacking up, I think that'll be what he's more likely to get, 5 or 6 pounds, I would say, from the British handicapper. Completely unexposed, improving horse. I think he's going to be a really impressive 3-mile chaser in time, and that's the kind of horse that generally goes very well in a Martin Pipe.
3 for Deasy.
Yeah, the first one is Bialystock in the county. I fancied him the last at Leopardstown. He was a big price the night before, but he was actually put up by Pricewise and was smashed into very sharp price, cracked into about 13-2. But was brought down. He was running fine. He was brought down by Attaboy Charlie, actually, who Dan mentioned there. I can see him being Paul Townend's pick on the day because I can't see Absurd having a chance. I can see Paul Townend picking Bialystock, and he will collapse in price. He'd go off near the top of the market. I'd say he's a right win place chance. The other ones then, 2 Keita Bourbon, you mentioned there earlier. He looks a right horse. He said 2 runs, won very easily, and actually what kind of brought it to my attention was really I was looking at one of his stable tours, and there was just one line about Keita Bourbon. It was like just the handicaps for him. He looks a good horse, and Gigginstown have landed a few big price winners in this race. Now he's at a big price at 10.0, but I think he'll probably go off close to the top of the market. And then Canto Bruno is another one again in the Martin Pipe. was so impressive at the start of the season at Cheltenham. He's at the moving to Gavin Cromwell now. He absolutely ramped home over course and distance, and he's run fairly shite since looking after the mark. I think he said this is his most likely target. I think if he rocks up here, he's going to be. I'd imagine he'll go off for 6.0. He's a double figure price now. I think he's about 14.0 now. So I'd be having a bet on board of them.
Friday lays. Matt and I are laying the front of the Abbott Bartlett market. I'm following Matt in there very much because that's a trend he's exploited over the years much. Donn, you've got a lay for us.
Yeah, so Gino in the Triumph Hurdle, Tom. I just think that he's priced up on the back of a really impressive performance the last day, but I think the Irish challenge is deeper than is suggested by the fact that he's an odds-on shot.
Okay, Steve, you agree?
Ditto. I thought that race that Donn mentioned at Cheltenham last time completely fell apart. Burdett Road was way too keen and the rest weren't up to the job. And he's going to face a lot more competition. To say that he's got more chance of winning than not winning this race is insane.
And so to best bets, my best bet is Sergino in the Triumph Hurdle.
That is just what we wanted to hear, Donn. That just puts the cherry on top.
Like water and oil, you two.
Insane. Good. 1.84 was a steal. Matt.
Jerry Colomb in the Gold Cup.
Donn.
Marlborough in the aforementioned Triumph Hurdle.
Steve.
Yeah, Donn's got everything right so far. So I
Get a room. Get a room, you two. It's pathetic. Charlie.
Yeah, Jerry Colomb for me as well.
Another big price for Dan.
Yeah, Waterford Whispers in the Martin Pipe.
And outdoing him with a big price is Deasy.
Carl Gramler flying home in the Gold Cup.
Oh, my word.